The phone's harsh ring tore through the darkness, jolting me from a dreamless sleep. My hand fumbled across the nightstand, knocking over a glass of water before finding the vibrating device. The bright screen showed 3 in the morning and an unknown number. Beside me, Sarah stirred but didn't wake, her breathing remaining deep and rhythmic. "Hello." My voice came out as a raspy whisper. Silence stretched for several seconds, then a man's voice, low, measured, and unfamiliar, spoke words that would shatter my world. "Your wife isn't who she claims to be." I sat up, instantly alert. "Who is this?" "A concerned party." The voice had an unsettling calmness. "I thought you should know. Is this some kind of joke?" I glanced at Sarah, her blonde hair splayed across the pillow, face peaceful in sleep. "I wish it were James. I really do." The stranger knew my name. "She leaves your house every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:15, claiming she's meeting clients." "She's not." My throat tightened. Sarah had indeed been leaving early those days, explaining she had breakfast meetings with new clients at her PR agency. "You don't know what you're talking about," I said, but doubt had already taken root. "The bedroom you're standing in has blue walls. There's a photograph of you two in Bali on your dresser. Your wife changed her phone password last week." My blood ran cold. Everything he said was accurate. Sarah had indeed changed her password, claiming her company required monthly updates for security reasons. "Who are you?" I demanded again. "Someone who knows she's lying to you. Watch her closely. You'll see." The line went dead. I sat motionless in the darkness, the phone still pressed against my ear. The central air hummed softly, and outside, a car drove past, its headlights briefly illuminating our bedroom ceiling before disappearing. I looked down at Sarah, studying her face. We'd been married for 5 years. I thought I knew everything about her, her habit of humming while cooking, how she always read the last page of a book first, the small scar on her shoulder from a childhood accident. But something had changed recently. Subtle shifts I'd been ignoring. She'd been taking calls in the bathroom with the shower running, working late without explanation. And there was a new distance in her eyes when we spoke, as if part of her was elsewhere. Sleep became impossible. I slipped out of bed and padded downstairs to the kitchen, where I made a cup of tea and sat at our island counter. The granite felt cool under my palms as I tried to rationalize the phone call. A prank. A case of mistaken identity. A jealous coworker trying to cause trouble. But why did those explanations feel hollow? Morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through the kitchen blinds. I heard Sarah's footsteps on the stairs before she appeared, dressed in her silk robe, hair tousled from sleep. "You're up early," she said, surprise coloring her voice. She poured herself coffee from the pot I'd made an hour earlier. "Couldn't sleep." I watched her movements carefully. "Bad dream." "About what?" She leaned against the counter, blowing steam from her mug. I hesitated. "Can't remember now." Sarah nodded and glanced at her watch. "I need to hurry. I have that meeting with the Thornhill account." The Thornhill account. She'd mentioned it several times recently. Always with the same lack of detail. "Where's that meeting again?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. A flicker of something, annoyance? Concern? Crossed her face before disappearing. "Downtown office." "Why?" "Just curious. Thought maybe we could meet for lunch after." "Oh." She took a sip of coffee. "I can't today. The meeting will run long and then I have follow-ups all afternoon." I nodded, noting how she didn't meet my eyes. "No problem. Another time." After she left, I found myself opening drawers, checking pockets, searching for, what? Evidence? Reassurance? In her desk, tucked between credit card statements, I found a receipt from a restaurant called Arbor Hill, an expensive place on the other side of town. The date was from last Tuesday, one of her client breakfast days. The time stamp showed 7:30 in the evening. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Miss you already? Have a good day." I stared at her words, then at the receipt in my hand. The stranger's voice echoed in my mind. "Your wife isn't who she claims to be." That afternoon, I noticed her wedding ring sitting in the small dish on our bathroom counter. She'd stopped wearing it to meetings, something she'd never done before. Something was very wrong in my marriage, and I was suddenly afraid to discover what it was. "I need to go out of town for a couple of days," I lied, watching Sarah's reaction over my morning coffee. "Last-minute client meeting in Chicago." Her eyes flickered up from her phone. "Chicago? When do you leave?" "This afternoon. Back on Thursday." My stomach twisted with the deception, but I kept my face neutral. In truth, I'd called in a personal day at work, my first in over a year. The suspicion had been eating at me like acid for the past week, keeping me awake at night as I listened to Sarah's even breathing beside me, wondering if she was dreaming of someone else. "That's too bad," she said, touching my arm with light fingers. "I'll miss you." Would she really? I noticed how quickly she turned back to her phone, already texting someone. Her wedding ring was absent again. "Who are you messaging so early?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Jen from work. We have that Westfield presentation today." No hesitation in her answer, but her thumb quickly locked the screen. I kissed her goodbye that morning with a strange hollowness in my chest. We'd shared thousands of kisses over our years together, celebratory kisses, comforting kisses, passionate kisses in the darkness of our bedroom. This one felt like kissing a stranger. Instead of heading to the airport, I parked my car 3 blocks from our house and waited. At 9:15, exactly as she had for the past several Tuesdays, Sarah emerged in her navy business suit, hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, sunglasses concealing her eyes despite the cloudy morning. I followed her downtown, maintaining a careful distance in the morning traffic. Every red light felt like torture, my pulse pounding in my ears as I struggled to keep her silver Audi in sight without getting too close. She didn't drive to her office building but continued past it to a coffee shop where she spent 40 minutes inside. I watched through the window as she worked on her laptop, occasionally glancing at her watch. The day stretched endlessly. Sarah attended what appeared to be legitimate meetings, made phone calls from park benches, and behaved exactly like the dedicated PR professional she claimed to be. My suspicions began to waver. Perhaps the anonymous caller was wrong. Perhaps I was destroying our trust over nothing. Then at 6:30, instead of heading home, she drove to the east side of the city, to a neighborhood of upscale restaurants and boutiques. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as she pulled into the parking lot of Arbor Hill, the restaurant from the receipt. The maitre d' greeted her with familiar warmth, leading her directly to a corner table partially concealed by decorative foliage. I waited 5 minutes before entering, asking for a table with a view of the restaurant but hidden enough that she wouldn't spot me. The server seemed to sense my unease, giving me a small, pitying smile as if she'd seen this scenario play out before. Through the fronds of a large decorative palm, I watched my wife sit alone for 12 minutes, periodically checking her reflection in her compact mirror and reapplying her lipstick, the expensive berry-colored one she saved for special occasions, not the neutral shade she wore to work. He arrived at 6:47. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a charcoal suit that screamed money and influence. Sarah's face transformed at the sight of him, lighting up with an energy I hadn't seen directed at me in months. He bent to kiss her cheek, his hand lingering on her shoulder before taking the seat across from her. My food arrived but I couldn't eat. I just sat, mechanically sipping water, watching them through the plants. They spoke intently, heads inclined toward each other. Twice she laughed, a musical sound that carried across the restaurant, and I saw her hand reach across the table to touch his. When he presented her with a small velvet box, something fractured inside me. Sarah opened it with visible delight, removing what appeared to be diamond earrings, immediately putting them on. Then she leaned across the table and kissed him, not a friendly peck, but a lingering, intimate kiss that made the server awkwardly avert her eyes as she passed their table. My fingers trembled as I raised my phone, zooming in to capture the moment. The shutter sound seemed deafening, though no one turned to look. One perfect image, crystal clear. My wife kissing a stranger, new diamonds glinting at her ears. I left cash on the table and walked out, my legs somehow carrying me despite the numbness spreading through my body. Back at our house, I packed an overnight bag with mechanical efficiency, my mind curiously blank. Before leaving, I printed the photograph, placing it in the center of our kitchen table. Beneath it, I wrote 3 simple words: "I know everything." Outside, rain had begun to fall, droplets racing down my windshield like tears I couldn't shed. I drove away from the life I thought we had built together, my phone already beginning to vibrate with Sarah's calls, which I silenced one by one. The motel bed felt like concrete beneath my back. I'd spent the night staring at the water-stained ceiling, listening to the hum of the vending machine outside my door and the occasional passing car on the highway. My phone had eventually stopped vibrating with Sarah's calls, 27 in total before midnight. I hadn't answered a single one. Morning light filtered through thin curtains, casting the sparse room in a sickly yellow glow. I'd barely slept, my mind replaying the image of Sarah kissing that man, her face transformed with a happiness I hadn't seen in months. My phone buzzed again. Expecting Sarah, I almost ignored it until I noticed the unfamiliar number. A text message glowed on the screen. "I can tell you everything about your wife." Meet me at Riverside Park, East Entrance, noon today. My throat tightened. Was this the same stranger who had called that night? How had he gotten my number? More importantly, how did he know what had happened? Despite my better judgment, I found myself driving to the park at the appointed time. The morning had turned brisk, with autumn leaves swirling across the nearly empty paths. I pulled my jacket tighter and scanned the area, unsure who I was looking for. James? The voice came from behind me. I turned to find a man in his 30s, brown hair receding slightly, dressed in jeans and a worn leather jacket. His eyes held the same weariness I'd seen in my own mirror that morning. "I'm Michael," he said, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming." "You're the one who called me that night," I said, ignoring his outstretched hand. "How do you know my wife?" Michael lowered his arm, nodding toward a bench overlooking the river. "Let's sit. This isn't a short conversation." We sat, keeping a cautious distance between us. Joggers passed occasionally, their breath visible in the cool air. "I'm Robert's brother," he began, watching my face for recognition. "Robert? The man you saw with your wife yesterday. Robert Keller." So the silver-haired man had a name now. "You've been spying on us?" "Not you," Michael clarified. "My brother. And by extension your wife." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. "Robert isn't just some businessman having an affair with your wife. He's involved in things that would destroy your life if you get pulled in." I took the folder with numb fingers. Inside were financial statements, photographs, and what appeared to be transaction records. What am I looking at? Evidence of money laundering, tax evasion, and connections to organized crime. Michael's voice dropped lower. "My brother runs a legitimate business as a front, but his real money comes from elsewhere." I leafed through the documents, recognizing Sarah's handwriting on several papers. "And Sarah? Started as his PR consultant 6 months ago. The relationship developed and now she's in too deep." Michael's expression darkened. "She knows too much and my brother plans to use her, and you, to clean some money." "Me?" The world seemed to tilt sideways. "Your joint accounts. Your house. Your reputation as an honest businessman makes you a perfect cover. Robert's pushing Sarah to transfer assets, convince you to invest in his companies." My mind raced back to how Sarah had recently suggested we refinance our house, possibly start an investment portfolio with a brilliant financial advisor she'd met. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, studying his face for deception. Michael looked away, watching the river. "Because I'm afraid for her. And for you." He hesitated. "Robert doesn't let people walk away once they're involved. If Sarah tries to end things romantically or professionally, she's in danger." "I don't believe you," I said, but the folder in my hands felt heavy with truth. "You've noticed the changes in her. The secrecy. The late nights." Michael's eyes met mine. "You know something's wrong." He was right. Even before the anonymous call, I'd sensed the shifting ground beneath our marriage. "If what you're saying is true," I said slowly, "why involve me? Why not go to the police? Robert has people in the department. I need more evidence before I can take this higher up." Michael stood. "And Sarah might listen to you. She's in love with him, but I think she's beginning to see who he really is." The autumn wind picked up, sending leaves skittering across our feet. I thought of Sarah's face yesterday, luminous with joy at Robert's gift. Then I remembered her nervous explanation about the restaurant receipt, the password changes, the missing wedding ring. "What do we do now?" I asked, the question tasting bitter on my tongue. Michael handed me a burner phone. "We gather proof. We protect Sarah whether she wants it or not. And we make sure you both come out of this alive." His expression hardened. "Because my brother won't stop at threats if he feels cornered." I pocketed the phone, the weight of it nothing compared to the heaviness in my chest. I had woken up yesterday a man concerned about his marriage. Today I stood in a park holding evidence of criminal conspiracy and fearing for our lives. "I need to talk to Sarah," I said finally. The drive home felt like navigating through fog. Michael's revelations churned in my mind, each piece of information more alarming than the last. The folder lay on the passenger seat like a ticking bomb. I had studied its contents before leaving the park. Financial records with Sarah's signature, photographs of Robert with known criminals, transcripts of conversations that hinted at money movement through shell companies. Rain began to fall as I pulled into our driveway. Our house, the one we had chosen together 4 years ago with its wraparound porch and blue shutters, suddenly felt like a stranger's home. Had Sarah already transferred ownership documents as Michael claimed? Was our sanctuary already compromised? I sat in the car, watching raindrops race down the windshield, postponing the inevitable confrontation. Finally, the front door opened and Sarah appeared in the doorframe, her silhouette familiar yet somehow foreign. She'd been watching for me. The moment I stepped inside, I could tell she'd been crying. Her eyes were swollen, mascara smudged beneath them. Her usual composure had crumbled, replaced by a frantic energy that made her hands tremble as she pushed her hair back from her face. "James," she whispered, her voice catching. "It's not what you think." I said nothing, just placed the folder on our coffee table and removed my wet jacket. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. "Please say something," she pleaded, following me into the living room. "Anything." I turned to face her. "What happened to your wedding ring?" Her hand automatically went to the bare finger. I took it off for a photo shoot at work. I must have forgotten to put it back on. The same way you forgot to mention dinner at Arbor Hill?" I kept my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "Or the diamond earrings?" Color drained from her face. "You followed me." "I didn't need to. Someone told me exactly where to find you." I opened the folder, spreading photographs across the table. "Someone who knows a lot about your new friend Robert." Sarah's eyes darted to the documents, widening with recognition. "Where did you get these?" "Michael. Robert's brother." She collapsed onto the sofa, shock written across her features. "Michael contacted you? When? Does it matter?" "What matters is what's in these files." I pointed to a document bearing her signature. "Your handwriting. Your name. On papers that could send you to prison." "It's not," she began, then stopped herself, dropping the pretense. Her shoulders sagged as reality settled over her. "I didn't know at first. You have to believe me." "Know what? That you were having an affair? Or that your lover is a criminal?" "Both." The word came out barely audible. Sarah looked up, tears streaming freely now. "I met Robert through work. He was charming, attentive, everything that She swallowed hard. "Everything I thought I wanted." "And when did you discover he wasn't just a wealthy businessman?" 2 months ago." She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking small. "By then I was already involved. He asked me to help with some documents, said it was just restructuring his company. I realized too late what I was actually doing." "You could have come to me," I said, the hurt in my voice unmistakable. Sarah pushed up her sleeve, revealing fingerprint bruises on her wrist. "The first time I tried to distance myself, he made it clear that wasn't an option." Her voice hardened. "He knows everything about us, James. Our mortgage, your work schedule, even the security code to our alarm system." I sat down heavily, the room spinning slightly. "Michael says Robert plans to use our joint accounts for money laundering." "He's already started." Sarah reached for her purse, pulling out several bank notices. "These came last week. Transfer authorizations I never signed, though the signature looks convincingly like mine." I examined the papers, feeling ill. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because he threatened you." Her voice broke. "He said if I didn't cooperate, you'd have an unfortunate accident." And he described, in detail, exactly how it would happen. The Sarah I'd known for years, confident, sometimes distant, always in control, had vanished. In her place sat a frightened woman trapped in a situation spiraling beyond her control. Despite everything, I felt a protective instinct rise within me. "There's more," she whispered, moving to her laptop. "Robert had me transfer the deed to our house into a holding company last month. He said it was temporary for tax purposes." She opened a document. "But I've discovered the company links back to his known criminal associates. I thought of our life together, 5 years of shared dreams, now tainted by deception and danger. The betrayal still cut deep, but the immediate threat overshadowed my personal pain." "Michael says we need evidence," I said finally. "Enough to take to federal authorities, bypass local police who might be compromised." Sarah looked up, a flicker of hope breaking through her despair. "You're going to help me?" "I don't know what we are to each other anymore," I admitted. "But I'm not letting you face this alone." For the first time since I'd entered the house, Sarah's breathing steadied. "I'm so sorry, James. For everything." Outside, thunder rumbled across the darkening sky, echoing the storm we now faced together. The burner phone Michael had given me vibrated against the kitchen counter as Sarah and I cleared away our barely touched dinner. 3 days had passed since our confrontation, days filled with tense silences and cautious planning. We'd moved around our own home like strangers sharing temporary accommodations, both aware that the life we once had was gone. "It's Michael," I said, answering the call and putting it on speaker. "Can you talk?" His voice sounded strained, more urgent than before. Yes, Sarah's here too. Pause. Good. I need to meet with both of you. Tonight. We arranged to meet at a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where waitresses don't make eye contact and customers mind their own business. The drive there was silent, Sarah staring out the passenger window, her profile illuminated by passing streetlights. Once, her hand moved unconsciously toward mine on the center console before she caught herself and withdrew. Michael was already in a corner booth when we arrived, nursing a cup of coffee that had likely gone cold. His eyes darted to the entrance each time the bell above the door jingled. "My brother's getting suspicious," he said without preamble as we slid into the booth. "He knows someone accessed his files." Sarah's face paled. "Does he know it was you?" "Not yet." Michael pushed a plate of untouched pie away from him. "But I don't have much time. We need to move faster." The waitress approached, but I waved her off. "What's the plan?" Michael leaned forward, lowering his voice. "We need concrete evidence of the money laundering, recorded threats, and his connections to organized crime. Enough to bypass local authorities and go straight to the FBI. I've already started documenting the unauthorized transfers," Sarah said, her voice steadier than I'd heard in days. "But it's not enough to prove Robert's behind it." "Which is why you need to keep seeing him," Michael replied, watching her reaction carefully. The diner's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Sarah's face as she processed his words. "You want me to continue the relationship? It's our only chance." Michael turned to me. "And you'll need to set up surveillance at your house. Get evidence of him making threats, discussing illegal activities." The thought of watching Sarah continue her charade with Robert made my stomach churn, but I recognized the logic. "I can install cameras, get audio equipment." "They can't be detected," Michael warned. "Robert regularly sweeps for bugs in his own spaces. He might do the same at yours." "I know someone who can help," I said, thinking of my college roommate who now worked in security systems. "Discreet equipment, professional installation." Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she wrapped them around her coffee mug. "What if he wants me to, if he expects?" Michael's expression softened with understanding. "You'll need to maintain the appearance of the relationship without crossing lines you're not comfortable with. Make excuses if necessary. And if he doesn't accept those excuses?" The strain in her voice was evident. "We'll have a safety protocol," I interjected, surprising myself with the protective instinct that surged through me despite everything. Code words, regular check-ins. We spent the next hour outlining our dangerous plan. Michael would continue gathering information from Robert's office. Sarah would maintain the relationship, carefully extracting information. I would transform our house into a surveillance hub, documenting everything. "This won't be quick," Michael warned as we prepared to leave. "And the risk is substantial. My brother doesn't forgive betrayal." The weight of his words hung in the air between us. "There's something else you should know," he added, his expression grave. "Robert isn't just dangerous because of his connections. He's unstable, volatile. I've seen him turn violent over minor provocations." Sarah unconsciously touched the fading bruises on her arm. "I know." Michael fixed his gaze on me. "Are you sure you want to do this? Once we start, there's no backing out." The question wasn't just about the plan. It was about Sarah, about whether I could set aside my pain and anger to help the woman who had betrayed me. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in days. Behind the fear and regret in her eyes, I glimpsed the person I had married. Someone who had made terrible mistakes but didn't deserve whatever Robert might do. "I'm sure," I said finally. 2 days later, our house was rigged with hidden cameras and microphones in every room except the bathrooms. My security expert friend had asked no questions, assuming I was dealing with a standard home invasion concern. The main recording hub was hidden in a false panel in our basement, accessible only by a sequence of precise movements against what appeared to be a normal section of wall. That evening, as Sarah prepared for her first date with Robert since our discovery, I helped her attach a miniature recording device to her bra strap. Our fingers brushed and she caught my hand. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not leaving me to face this alone." "Just be careful," I replied, stepping back as she fastened the diamond earrings he had given her, now transformed from tokens of betrayal into tools of evidence. As she walked out the door, I turned to the monitoring equipment, preparing for the hardest surveillance job of my life. Watching my wife pretend to love the man who threatened everything we had built. Over the next 2 weeks, our house became a surveillance hub and our lives a carefully choreographed performance. I watched through hidden cameras as Sarah prepared for her meetings with Robert, applying makeup to cover the dark circles under her eyes, practicing smiles that never reached those eyes. She'd return late, immediately showering as if trying to wash away more than just his cologne. Each recording brought us closer to our goal. Robert had begun to trust Sarah enough to speak freely about his operations. Vague references at first, then increasingly specific details about money movements and business associates with questionable backgrounds. He mentioned a shipment coming through the port next Tuesday, Sarah reported after one particularly successful evening. Said it would solve their cash flow problems. I forwarded everything to Michael through encrypted channels. Our evidence was building but not quickly enough. We need something concrete, Michael insisted during our weekly meet-up at the diner. Account numbers, explicit statements about illegal activities. The FBI won't move without it. Sarah nodded, fidgeting with her napkin. He keeps most documents in his home office. Says he doesn't trust digital storage. Can you get access? I asked. Maybe. She hesitated. He's invited me to stay overnight this weekend. Says he has something important to discuss. The thought of Sarah spending the night at Robert's home sent a wave of nausea through me, but I kept my expression neutral. This wasn't about my feelings anymore. It could be our chance, Michael said, watching me carefully for a reaction. But it's risky. If he catches you searching. I'll be careful, Sarah promised. He takes sleeping pills. Once he's out, I should have at least an hour. 2 nights later, I sat alone in our basement, monitoring empty rooms while Sarah was at Robert's house. The silence was deafening. I'd grown accustomed to the sound of her moving around upstairs, even during our coldest days of barely speaking. The burner phone buzzed just after midnight. Sarah's message was brief, got something. Coming home now. Relief flooded through me. 20 minutes later, headlights swept across our driveway. I rushed upstairs to meet her but stopped at the kitchen window. Sarah was hurrying up the path, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Something was wrong. James, she burst through the door, face pale with fear. They followed me. Robert's men. I saw them 3 blocks back. I pulled her inside, locking the door. Are you sure? Positive. Black SUV, tinted windows. They'd been outside the restaurant all night. She thrust a USB drive into my hand. I found this in his safe. Financial records, offshore accounts, everything we need. We need to call Michael, I said, already reaching for the burner phone. No time. Sarah was gathering essentials, throwing them into a backpack. We need to leave now. Use the back door. I hesitated only briefly before grabbing my emergency cash and following her lead. We slipped out through the garden gate just as a vehicle pulled up out front. This way, I whispered, guiding her down the neighbor's side path toward the alley where my old truck was parked, a vehicle Robert wouldn't recognize. We drove in tense silence, taking random turns to ensure we weren't followed. Eventually, I headed toward the address Michael had given us as an emergency meeting point. His family's old hunting cabin outside the city. The cabin stood dark against the night sky, surrounded by towering pines. I parked behind it, out of sight from the road. Michael's car is already here, Sarah noted, pointing to a sedan partially hidden by bushes. I felt a surge of relief as we approached the cabin. Michael had come through. He would know what to do next. The door creaked open at my knock. Michael stood in the dim light of a single lamp, his expression unreadable. You made it, he said, stepping aside to let us enter. Did anyone follow you? I don't think so, I replied, scanning the sparse cabin. We took precautions. Sarah handed him the USB drive. Everything you need should be here. Account numbers, transactions, contacts. Michael examined it, nodding slowly. This could be enough. A floorboard creaked in the back room. Sarah froze. Is someone else here? Before Michael could answer, the bedroom door swung open. Robert stepped out, his silver hair gleaming in the lamplight, a cold smile on his face. Well done, brother, he said to Michael. I knew they'd come to you. The blood drained from my face as understanding dawned. Sarah gasped beside me, her hand finding mine in the darkness. I'm sorry, Michael said, not meeting our eyes. He's family. Family? Robert laughed, the sound chilling. Is that what you told them? That you were betraying me out of some misplaced moral obligation? He turned to us. My brother works for me. Always has. Every step of your little investigation was monitored, every piece of evidence catalogued. My mind raced through our interactions with Michael, recalibrating everything in this new terrible light. It had all been a setup. The USB? I asked, already knowing the answer. Tracked from the moment it left my safe, Robert confirmed, pulling a gun from his jacket. Did you really think I'd leave something so incriminating where it could be found so easily? Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady despite everything. If you're going to kill us, at least admit what you're really doing with your business. Kill you? Robert raised an eyebrow. My dear, you're far too valuable. Both of you. He gestured with the gun. Now, let's discuss your future with my organization. Behind Robert, Michael's eyes met mine, and in them I saw something unexpected, regret, and a silent message I couldn't quite decipher. The cabin's wooden walls seemed to close in around us as Robert circled like a predator, gun still pointed casually in our direction. Outside, the wind had picked up, branches scratching against the windows like desperate fingers seeking entry. Sit, Robert commanded, gesturing to the threadbare couch against the wall. Sarah and I complied, shoulders touching as we perched on the edge of the cushions. My mind raced through possible escape scenarios, but each ended with the same grim conclusion. We were trapped. You've caused me quite a bit of trouble, Robert said, his tone conversational, as if discussing a minor business setback. Particularly you, Sarah. I thought we had something special. Special? Sarah's voice trembled with anger. You threatened me. You threatened my husband. Robert smiled coldly. Business and pleasure sometimes require firm boundaries. He turned to Michael, who stood uncomfortably by the door. Get their phones. As Michael approached, his eyes met mine for an instant. Something passed between us, a silent communication I couldn't fully decipher but sensed was important. Now, Robert continued, lowering himself into an armchair across from us, let's discuss how we move forward. You have two choices, work with me willingly or under duress. I prefer the former, but I'm equipped for either. We'll never help you, I said, finding courage in desperation. Robert laughed. You already have. Those documents Sarah's been processing? The property transfers? All legitimate enough to pass initial scrutiny, but flexible enough to serve my needs. He leaned forward. Your signatures are on everything. If this goes public, you'll appear as willing accomplices. The realization hit me like a physical blow. We were already implicated. What do you want? I asked, stalling for time, hoping for any opening. Continue as you were, but without the amateur detective work. Robert stood, pacing slowly. Sarah returns to handling my PR and certain financial arrangements. You, James, will start investing in several companies I'll identify. Simple. Michael cleared his throat. Robert, maybe we should. Maybe you should wait outside, Robert snapped. Make sure no one followed them. Reluctantly, Michael moved toward the door. As he passed behind Robert, his hand brushed against his jacket pocket, a movement so subtle I almost missed it. The door closed behind Michael, leaving us alone with Robert. Something had changed in the room's atmosphere. Robert seemed suddenly vigilant, eyes darting to the windows. Time's running out, he said more sharply. Your decision? Sarah's hand found mine, squeezing tight. We need assurances of our safety. You're hardly in a position to negotiate, Robert replied, but his attention was dividing, his body language suggesting growing tension. A sudden crash from outside made him whirl toward the window. In that split second of distraction, I noticed what Michael had done. Removed the clip from Robert's gun when he passed behind him. I lunged forward, tackling Robert with every ounce of strength I possessed. We crashed into the coffee table, wood splintering beneath us. He tried to fire the gun, the empty click confirming my suspicion. Sarah grabbed a lamp, bringing it down on Robert's head as he struggled beneath me. He went limp momentarily, enough time for me to wrestle the gun away. The door burst open. Michael stood there, breathing hard, a trail of blood running from his temple. Police are coming, he gasped. Anonymous tip about an armed confrontation at this location. Robert stirred, eyes blazing with fury as he realized his brother's betrayal. You. I was never working for you, Michael cut him off. FBI undercover, 3 years embedded in your operation. He pulled out a badge from his jacket. I couldn't tell you, he said to us. Not until we had enough evidence. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Michael handed us keys. Take my car. There's a phone in the glove compartment with my supervisor's number. You'll be protected witnesses. You're staying? Sarah asked, confused. I need to finish this properly. Michael glanced at his brother, genuine sadness crossing his features. I've been building this case for years. Robert isn't just involved in money laundering, there's human trafficking, extortion, even suspected murder. Robert lunged suddenly, revealing a hidden knife from his boot. Michael reacted instinctively, deflecting the attack, but not before the blade sliced across his abdomen. I grabbed Robert from behind, restraining him as he fought with manic energy. The struggle became a blur of motion and pain. I felt the knife nick my arm before Sarah crashed a chair across Robert's back. He staggered, falling to his knees just as red and blue lights flooded through the windows. "Go," Michael urged through gritted teeth, pressing a hand to his bleeding torso. "Now." We hesitated, unwilling to leave him wounded. "I'll be fine," he insisted. "This ends tonight one way or another. But you need to be safe when it does." The wail of sirens grew deafening. Making a split-second decision, I helped Sarah through the back door. We sprinted toward Michael's car, the sounds of police shouting commands behind us. As we pulled away, I glimpsed through the trees, officers storming the cabin, Michael on the ground, Robert being restrained. Then the forest closed around us, and we were racing into the darkness, toward whatever uncertain future awaited us. Sarah clutched the FBI contact phone like a lifeline. "Do you think Michael will survive?" I thought of the determination in his eyes, the calculated risks he'd taken. "I hope so. He saved our lives." "And we're still running," she whispered, staring at the road ahead. "Not running," I corrected, reaching for her hand. "Surviving." 3 months passed like a fever dream. After that night at the cabin, our lives transformed into a blur of safe houses, FBI interviews, and legal depositions. We became crucial witnesses in the federal case against Robert and his criminal network, our testimony helping to unravel years of illegal operations. Michael had survived his wounds, thankfully. His cover blown, he now coordinated our protection openly, his genuine concern for our safety a stark contrast to the deception we'd initially perceived. The evidence Sarah had collected proved invaluable, revealing connections to criminal enterprises across 3 states. When the dust finally settled, we were offered a choice: return to our old lives with ongoing protection, or start fresh with new identities in a location of the government's choosing. The decision seemed obvious. Too many of Robert's associates remained at large, and our home held too many painful memories. That's how we found ourselves in Oak Ridge, a small coastal town 500 miles from everything we once knew. The government provided us with a modest house, new documentation, and enough funds to establish ourselves. Sarah became Elaine Cooper, and I was now Daniel Cooper, strangers who supposedly shared 15 years of marriage. "What do you think?" Sarah, Elaine, asked as we stood in our new living room, surrounded by generic furniture provided as part of our relocation package. I searched for the right word. Different. The house was nothing like our stylish city home. This was a weathered craftsman with creaking floorboards and windows that stuck in humid weather. Yet it had character: bay windows overlooking a small garden, built-in bookshelves waiting to be filled, a wide front porch perfect for watching storms roll in from the ocean. The harder adjustment was living together again. Despite sharing this new space, we existed in parallel, like housemates carefully avoiding conflict. I took the spare bedroom without discussion. Our conversations remained practical, focused on establishing our cover stories and navigating our new community. I found work teaching history at the local high school, drawing on my business background to add real-world context to economics lessons. The students were refreshingly direct, unburdened by the pretenses I'd grown accustomed to in corporate life. For the first time in months, I felt useful, defined by something other than betrayal and danger. Sarah, I still couldn't think of her as Elaine, opened a small coffee shop in town, converting a former bookstore into a warm, inviting space that quickly became popular with locals. She'd always had a gift for creating comfortable environments and building relationships. I occasionally passed by, watching through the windows as she charmed customers, her smile more genuine than I'd seen in years. We established separate routines, separate friends, separate lives beneath the same roof. Each night, I'd return home to find dinner waiting, her silent offering of reconciliation, but we rarely ate together. The wall between us remained solid, built of unspoken pain and lingering questions. Then I met Emma. The school's nurse, she had kind eyes and an easy laugh that came from genuine amusement rather than social obligation. We connected during a faculty meeting, bonding over shared confusion about the principal's Byzantine administrative procedures. Our first coffee together felt startlingly normal. We discussed books, hiking trails, and her volunteer work at the animal shelter, ordinary topics untainted by the extraordinary circumstances that had brought me to Oak Ridge. With Emma, I could briefly forget I was living someone else's life. One evening, after having dinner with Emma at the coastal diner, I spotted Sarah across the street. Our eyes met through the crowd and something passed between us, not jealousy or anger but a quiet acknowledgement. She nodded slightly before continuing on her way. That night, I found her sitting on our porch, watching the stars appear above the darkening ocean. "She seems nice," Sarah said as I hesitated in the doorway. "She is," I replied, surprised by her comment. "Good." Her voice held no bitterness. "You deserve someone nice." I sat beside her, maintaining a careful distance. "Do you miss it? Our old life?" Sarah considered this, wrapping her hands around her mug of tea. "Parts of it. My career. Our friends." She paused. "The people we were before everything happened." "I'm not sure those people exist anymore," I said quietly. "No, I suppose they don't." She turned to me, moonlight silvering her profile. "I keep thinking I'll wake up one morning and know how to fix this. But I don't think there's a simple fix, is there? Maybe some things aren't meant to be fixed," I offered. "Maybe they just become something different." The sound of waves filled the silence between us. For the first time in months, the quiet felt companionable rather than strained. "I hear there's a storm coming tomorrow," Sarah said finally. "The weather service is calling it the worst in years." "I should check the emergency supplies," I replied, falling into the practical exchange that had become our default. As I stood to go inside, she spoke again. "Daniel?" The use of my new name startled me. "Thank you for not hating me. You could have, and no one would have blamed you." I paused at the threshold. Hatred takes too much energy. And we have enough challenges without adding that to the mix. The storm arrived the next day, bringing winds that would change our carefully separated lives in ways neither of us could have anticipated. A year had passed since our arrival in Oak Ridge. What once felt foreign had become familiar. The rhythm of waves against the shore, the faces at the morning faculty meetings, the seasonal shifts in tourist traffic through Sarah's coffee shop. My relationship with Emma had deepened naturally. She brought warmth back into my life without demanding explanations for the shadows that sometimes crossed my face. Our evenings together felt untethered from the past, a precious gift I'd never expected to find again. Sarah and I had settled into an amicable coexistence. We shared the house as friendly roommates might, exchanging pleasantries and dividing responsibilities. The wall between us remained, but windows had appeared in it. Moments of genuine laughter over shared memories, collaborative home repairs during winter storms, silent companionship on the porch during spectacular sunsets. It was during one such sunset that I decided to propose to Emma. We'd been dating for nearly 9 months, and though my heart still carried complicated scars, I believed in the future we could build together. I invited her to dinner at home, something we rarely did given my living arrangement with Sarah. Sarah had graciously offered to stay at a friend's place for the evening, leaving me a bottle of wine with a note. "Be happy. You deserve it." Her use of her new identity somehow made the gesture more poignant. I spent the afternoon preparing Emma's favorite meal and rehearsing the words I would say when I presented the vintage sapphire ring I'd found at a local antique shop. The evening unfolded perfectly: candlelight, gentle music, Emma's delight at each course I'd prepared. "This is quite the occasion," she said, eyes twinkling with curiosity. "Should I be suspicious?" I laughed, reaching for her hand across the table. "Maybe a little." The moment felt right. I just opened my mouth to begin my carefully prepared speech when a sharp knock at the door shattered the atmosphere. "Expecting someone?" Emma asked. "I wasn't." Sarah had her own key, and we rarely received visitors, especially after dark. A chill of unease prickled along my spine, an old instinct awakening after months of dormancy. "Wait here," I said, moving to the entryway. Through the peephole, I saw a man in a dark coat, his face partially obscured by the porch shadows. Something about his posture triggered a warning in my mind. I glanced at the security system keypad, still armed, no indication of perimeter breaches. When I opened the door a cautious few inches, the chain still engaged, the man stepped forward into the porch light. Recognition hit me like a physical blow. Robert. Older, thinner, his silver hair now streaked with gray, but unmistakably him. My blood froze as our eyes met. "Hello, James," he said quietly, using my real name. Or should I say Daniel? "Quite a cozy life you've built here." "How?" My voice failed me. "Robert should have been in federal prison serving multiple life sentences." "Money opens many doors," he replied, reading my question from my expression. "Even prison doors if you know which palms to grease." His eyes flicked past me toward the dining room. "I see you have company." How rude of me to interrupt. "Daniel?" Emma called from inside. "Is everything all right?" The sound of her voice seemed to sharpen Robert's focus. "New girlfriend?" he asked, his tone conversational but edged with malice. "Does she know who you really are? What you did?" Leave now, I managed, my hand moving to the phone in my pocket. The police won't arrive in time, he finished. But don't worry. I'm not here to harm you. Not physically anyway. His smile chilled me. I simply wanted you to know that I'm aware of your location. That your safety is an illusion. He glanced at his watch. I'll be going now. Enjoy your evening. Perhaps we'll speak again soon. He turned and walked away, unhurried, confident. I closed the door, engaging every lock, my hands shaking violently. Daniel? Emma stood in the hallway, concern written across her features. Who was that? The question hung in the air as my mind raced through impossible calculations. Robert knew where we lived. Our cover was compromised. Emma was now potentially in danger simply by association with me. An old business associate, I said, the lie bitter on my tongue. Nothing important. But Emma was perceptive. She saw the pallor of my face, the tension in my shoulders. You're frightened, she observed. I've never seen you like this. I reached for her hands, the ring box now lead heavy in my pocket. There are things about me you don't know, Emma. Things I've wanted to tell you but couldn't. Confusion and hurt flickered across her face. What things? My name isn't Daniel Cooper, I began, the confession tumbling out before I could reconsider. I'm in witness protection. My previous life. I stopped, unsure how to compress the complex truth into words that wouldn't send her running. Emma stepped back, her expression shifting from confusion to something harder. Witness protection? You're telling me everything I know about you is a lie. Not everything, I insisted. My feelings for you are real. But my past is complicated. And the woman who lives here with you? Your roommate? Is she really your sister like you told me? I closed my eyes briefly. She's my wife. Legally, at least. We're separated. Emma grabbed her purse from the chair, her movements sharp with anger and betrayal. I need to go. I need to think. Emma, please, I reached for her. Don't. Her voice trembled. Just don't. I don't even know who you are. She left, the door closing firmly behind her. I stood frozen in the hallway, the evening in ruins, my cover blown, and Robert's threat hanging in the air like poison. I needed to warn Sarah. I needed to contact Michael. I needed to salvage what I could from this cascading disaster. The engagement ring sat forgotten in my pocket as I dialed Sarah's number with shaking fingers. 5 years had passed since that fateful night when Robert reappeared in our lives. The coastal town of Oak Ridge feels like a distant dream now, a chapter written in someone else's hand. The morning sun streams through the windows of my workshop, dust motes dancing in the golden light as I sand the curve of a table leg, the rhythmic motion soothing in its simplicity. My small furniture business has flourished in this quiet seaside community, far from the dangers of our past. Customers come for my handcrafted pieces, each bearing the signature of someone who has learned that beauty can emerge from broken things. After Robert's unexpected visit that night, everything unraveled with frightening speed. Emma left town within days, unable to reconcile the man she had fallen for with the stranger I had revealed myself to be. Sarah and I contacted Michael immediately, and within hours we were whisked away into yet another new life, another town, another set of names. The FBI eventually recaptured Robert, this time ensuring he would remain behind bars by placing him in a maximum security facility with no chance of parole. The news brought relief but couldn't repair the damage his brief reappearance had caused. Emma was gone. Our carefully constructed sanctuary in Oak Ridge was compromised. We were nomads once more. Sarah and I made a difficult decision in the wake of that upheaval. Though our shared trauma had forged an unbreakable bond between us, we both recognized that remaining together meant living in the shadow of our past. With Michael's help, we arranged separate relocations. She moved to Europe, last I heard opening a successful gallery in a city where her artistic sensibilities could flourish. We exchanged carefully encrypted messages on birthdays and holidays, brief windows into lives that have diverged but remain connected by an invisible thread. The chime of the shop door pulls me from my thoughts. I look up, expecting Mrs. Hendricks about her dining room commission, but instead find myself staring into familiar eyes I never thought I'd see again. Emma? She stands hesitantly at the threshold, older but instantly recognizable. The years have added subtle lines around her eyes, a few strands of silver in her chestnut hair, but her presence still carries the quiet strength I remember. Hello, James, she says, using my real name, the one I reclaimed after the danger passed. I hope I'm not intruding. I set down my tools slowly, dusting wood shavings from my apron. How did you find me? Michael, she admits. We've been in touch for years. Of course. Michael would have monitored her after everything happened, ensuring Robert hadn't targeted her. He told me everything, she continues, stepping further into the workshop. About Robert, about the witness protection, about Sarah. He thought I deserved to know the truth. He was right, I acknowledge. I should have found a way to tell you myself. She wanders to my workbench, fingers trailing along the edge of an unfinished bookcase. I wouldn't have believed you without proof. And you couldn't offer that without endangering both of us. Why now? I ask. After all this time? Robert died, she says simply. 3 months ago. Prison riot. The news hits me with unexpected force. The man who had shaped so much of our lives through fear and manipulation, gone. Not with the dramatic confrontation I'd sometimes imagined, but with the random chaos of violence. Michael said you were safe now, Emma continues. That you'd chosen to keep your real name, to stop running. Her eyes meet mine. He also mentioned you'd built this. She gestures to my workshop. Creating beautiful things with your hands. It keeps me grounded, I explain. Each piece has flaws that become part of its character. Like people, I suppose. A smile touches her lips. Very philosophical for a furniture maker. I've had time to think. I hesitate, then ask the question burning within me. Are you just passing through? I don't know yet, she answers honestly. I needed to see you. To make sure the man I glimpsed beneath Daniel Cooper was real. I lead her through the back door of my workshop to the small yard beyond. There, taking shape under a weathered tarp, sits my project of the past 2 years. A wooden sailboat nearly complete. She's beautiful, Emma says, running her hand along the smooth hull. I call her Rebirth, I tell her, pulling the cover fully away. Someday she'll take me wherever I need to go next. Emma studies me with those perceptive eyes that once saw through my carefully constructed facade. And where is that? I used to think it would be somewhere far away. A complete escape. I look out toward the horizon, where the ocean meets the sky in a hazy blue line. Now I'm not so certain distance is what I need. She stands beside me, our shoulders almost touching. Sometimes the journey is more about who than where. I turn to face her. Would you like to stay for dinner? I can't promise it will be as impressive as that last meal I cooked you, but I make a decent pasta now. Emma smiles, the gesture reaching her eyes. I'd like that. As we walk toward my small house, the setting sun bathes everything in golden light. The shadows of our past remain, but they no longer define us. Like the imperfect would I transform into something of value, we have emerged from fire and pain as something new, scarred perhaps, but stronger for having been broken. Tell me about your life, I say as we reach the porch. I want to hear everything. For the first time in years, I'm not looking over my shoulder. Tomorrow stretches before me not as a burden of vigilance, but as a gift of possibility.